We're live. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of Built to Be Heard, and I'm super excited because we have a very special guest with us. His name is Dominic Vogel. You have heard him speak all over the place. And I am delighted that he's back again, and he has some cool sports wear on, which I will let him tell you about that. Because
Well,
let me just say, yeah, Dallas is my second favorite team. I used to watch growing up with my dad. And then, of course, I have utmost respect for the Cleveland Guardians because they were, probably Cleveland's like 2.5 hours or so from my hometown, where I grew up in West Virginia. So, welcome, Dominic. I am so excited about our conversation today.
as always, Victoria, I'm always so grateful to be here, my friend. I'm always grateful. Yes, I'm a bit of a hodgepodge of sports wear today, wearing my Dallas Cowboys t-shirt and my Cleveland Guardians hat that my kiddos got me for Father's Day. So this is one of my newer hats that I'm wearing. So and it's the first time
Awesome.
it's actually appeared. It's the first time it's appeared on a show anywhere. So this is
Oh, it
you
is.
get the first one.
I'm so honored that you chose to make your Cleveland Guardians hat the debut of your
Yeah, and
Cleveland
it,
Guardians
it
hat.
had to be with you. It had to be with you,
Okay.
my friend. So
So super excited. I'm really honored by that. And I think all the Cleveland fans out there will be as well. And
yeah,
Dallas Cowboys. Yes,
there
of
you go.
course.
There you go.
Okay. Awesome. Well, like I said, this hasn't been our first conversation, and I know that we're going to continue to have so many conversations because I just love what you do, and your leadership qualities just, speak for themselves. But last time we talked, we were really, you were really expanding on how cybersecurity, it's not just about cybersecurity, it's not just technology. So I just wanted to touch on that and just have you remind people, what's your philosophy on that and what's important for them to remember.
Yeah, I appreciate that question to start off, Victoria. I mean, to me, I think it's what's fundamental to remember here is that cybersecurity and cyber risk, and that's why I'm calling it cyber risk, is that we can't just keep treating it with technology because fundamentally, this
Mhm.
isn't necessarily a technology problem. Fundamentally, to truly solve this is a leadership problem. This is a human problem, right? And so I really try to again, focus on demystifying this and destigmatizing it and not treating it as it's not a technical output or technical problem. Yes, there's technical problems to it, but
Mhm,
again,
mhm.
from a philosophical perspective, this needs to be treated, like I said, and discussed in the highest echelons, in boardrooms among executives. This isn't something that CEOs can just say, "Oh, my tech guy's dealing with it." That may have
Mhm.
been true, and there was a period where that was true. Late '90s, early 2000s, heck, even into the 2010s. But fundamentally, that's not true now, right? And we need to make sure that we take that leap and recognize, like I said, these are conversations that have to happen in boardrooms, not just in IT rooms.
And that is so key. I love that you speak about that. I would just say that I'd love to know for the CEOs and founders and leaders that are listening out there, what would you say to them if you were having a conversation and they said, "But I'm not really technical. I don't really understand what my tech people are doing." How would you encourage them to, join in on those conversations?
For sure, and to me, gr- great leadership again is not about having the right answers. It's about giving the space for
That's
the
right.
right questions to manifest. And to me, it's again trying to go beyond just yeah. You don't need to understand the technical manifestations of cybersecurity, but being able to have conversations and these types of questions. I like to ask business owners and executives is if you were to lose your key systems, right? How long could you withstand that? Is it measured in
Mhm,
minutes, hours, days?
mhm.
A lot of people can't even answer that basic question, right? That has nothing to do with the technical manifestation of cybersecurity, or
Right.
another thing. If you're selling to your customers or clients, what security regulations or security aspects are they looking for that in terms of whatever product or platform that you deliver? Do you know
Right.
that? Another very common right now is people have cyber insurance. They spend, depending on the size of the organization, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on their cyber insurance. Do you actually know what requirements you need to fulfill in order for that to be valid?
Mm,
And
mm,
because if let's say you've paid into cyber insurance for the past 5 years, and let's say you're a company where you pay maybe $10,000 a year, that's $50,000 you've been paying into that insurance. And when you
mhm,
need it, and you find out that actually, well, you weren't doing all these basic requirements, so now it's null and void. What was the point of investing in that cyber insurance, right? So something like that. Again, these are all types of questions which are, again, I try to bring to the executive room and to the boardroom. Another common question I always like to ask too is, what are your critical business processes? Like, why does your
mhm,
business exist? And of
mhm,
that if you know those business processes, what data feeds those critical business processes,
mhm,
and of that data,
mhm.
what systems do they live in? Knowing that is, again, 99% of organizations can't answer that, and that to me is where I would say, well, this is where we need to focus our cyber risk initiatives, because the other
Mhm.
stuff is just window dressing, right? So to me, these are all questions that have maybe security undertones to them, but are fundamentally framed from a business risk perspective. It's not about a
Right.
technical manifestation of cyber.
Wow. And that's so powerful. And, to your point, like you said, a lot of companies or, well, executives may not be able to answer those questions. However, if they get you involved, you can help guide them, correct? So they know how to get those
Absolutely.
answers, how, what's important, maybe a checklist, uh,
And,
because,
and, and,
yeah,
and that's the thing, Victoria. And that's where, again, there's this, I'll say that this, I'll call it mythology, where if I talk to an executive and about cyber, and they're like, oh, I don't know what firewall we're using. Great.
mm,
I wouldn't expect you to know that, right?
right,
But what I would expect you to be able to answer is, what if your company was down for 72 hours? Because you had the wrong firewall in place. What would that mean to your business? You should be able to answer that, right? It's
right.
again, it's about risk ownership, right? Because again, it's again where there's that fundamental disconnect, with if you ask a CEO or business owner about their top financial risks, they'll be able to lay that out. They don't necessarily need to be finance experts, but they'll at least be able to say, well, here's what the CFO is keeping tabs on. You ask them about
Mhm.
operational risks, they'll be able to do that. Legal risks, personnel risks. You ask them about cyber, and they'll say, I don't know. Go ask our IT guy. We don't need it's that disconnect. It's not about the technical details. That's not what's important. What's
Right.
important, again, is framing it through a risk lens. What does the risk manifestation look like? So again, conversations such as, how many data breaches can your organization withstand over a 5-year period or 10-year period? What risk
Mhm,
are you willing to accept there?
mhm,
These are
mhm.
the types of conversations that executives and business owners and boards need to have. That's how they frame cyber risk. So stop thinking that you need to answer technical stuff. You don't, but you need to understand where cyber meets risk. That's what they need to focus on.
Mm, I love that. Now, since we last talked, because it's been about a month and a half, almost 2 months, maybe. I don't know the exact date. I think it was in May or, but it's been a couple months. So
It's been
since
too
our
long.
last, yeah, we should do this every month, actually. So
Absolutely.
I think it would be great because it's so valuable, so educational to our listeners, so that they can actually figure out what it is they need to, what they should be focusing on. Because, as you know, so many times they may be focusing on the wrong thing,
Yep. Yep.
and that's a waste of time. Then if they do have an event, the last thing that they need to be surprised about is, oh, that cyber insurance, like you were talking about, that they invested, thousands of tens of thousands of dollars in. It's not going to cover,
No.
what they thought it did. And those are not pleasant surprises. So since our last conversation, I just love to know what changes have really, caught your attention the most, because you speak globally, you're on Zooms all the time, you work with private clients. What changes have caught your attention the most since we talked last, Dominic?
You know what? To me, the thing that caught my attention, still hasn't caught my attention too, is that when that notion that I was hinting a little about earlier about cyber insurance. that there are still so many businesses, executives, board of directors who think of cyber insurance as just a safety blanket, right? Oh, we got cyber insurance, we're good. We don't. Why do we need to talk more about cyber? We got cyber insurance.
Right.
That it's still it's I especially over the past month, the conversations I've had with companies that I thought would be more evolved from a risk management perspective just default to saying, well, we don't need to talk about this more. We have cyber insurance. It's
Oh.
this notion, like I said, that still shocks me. And like I said, just this past month in particular, it's just everyone I talk to seemed to be saying, well, we're not worried. We have cyber insurance. It's not a monopoly like get out of jail card, right? Like
Mhm.
it is a risk management tool. And the thing that fundamentally just blows my mind is that it's people, and people you would think would be able to see it in a more risk appropriate lens, see it as just why would we worry about cyber? We got the insurance. It does fundamentally doesn't work that way, right? And that to me
Oh.
is what I still is so pervasive, primarily in small and mid-sized businesses
Mhm.
across, I'd say right across the world, but primarily, at least for me, in North America and Canada, the U.S.,
Right.
is that notion, like I said, that we don't need to do the hard work on cyber or worry about cyber risk because we got insurance. It doesn't,
Mhm.
like I said, it doesn't work that way. I have fire insurance here. That doesn't mean that I rip out my smoke detectors and walk around
Right.
lighting matches, right?
Right.
It's that
Right.
my insurance would be null and void. And that's, like I said, what I see time and time and time again is organizations calling me saying, we had cyber insurance, or we have cyber insurance, we thought it would pan out, but we are in the middle of a data breach and they told us that it's null and void because we weren't doing this, or
Yes.
they found out that we weren't, meeting the basic requirements, so we now have no insurance. Okay, well, that's too bad. I'm not a miracle worker as great as I think I am,
Right.
but you again, like I said, to me, this fundamental nature, and that's why again it's so important that we look at this through a risk management lens, not just
Mhm.
we have cyber insurance, let's never worry about this again. That
Mhm.
never works out well.
Oh my gosh, no. No, it doesn't. And I feel for those people because, I mean, in some cases that can be, a business ending. I know
Oh,
a law
absolutely.
firm several
Yeah.
years ago that, and granted, a lot of the cybersecurity thing, was kind of new. People
Hmm.
weren't aware, but it was the situation where they had to close their doors, because
Yeah.
they didn't have the coverage, and
Yeah.
they had to kind of disband and then just kind of go out on their own, because
Yeah.
it wasn't something they could recover from.
Yes. Yes. And that's the, like I said, I think what is really interesting, and the bit that, well, at least I'm talking to smaller and mid-sized businesses, is without trying to be hyperbolic, be able to explain that cyber risk for smaller mid-sized business is more of an existential risk than it is to larger businesses.
Hmm.
Well, when I'm presenting to smaller businesses, I often say, well, who has the most to lose when it comes to cyber risk? Is it, a small mid-sized business, or is it an enterprise? And more often than not, the answer I get from people is, oh, it's the large company, right? The enterprise, they have more money at stake. I was like, no, that's not true, right? They have the financial war chest to survive this, right? And because for them, cyber risk isn't existential. For many small and mid-sized organizations, I'd argue cyber risk is an existential risk, and so it's not just about losing more money; it's about literally losing what the business is, right? Business
Right.
disappears,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
that to me
That's
again
correct.
is is the type of powerful reframing that and I appreciate platforms like this to allow me to advocate that we need to start reframing that in the among small and mid-sized organizations.
So important, Dominic. So now, when we speak about AI and leadership, right? Because I know everybody's talking about, I find that some organizations are very eager and already embracing it, and I still find many that are still resisting it, or they were raising their hand saying, "Hey, look, we've got this in here, it, but it didn't work, for many reasons, sometimes the way it was set up, or whatever the case was, the selection process." But where are you on that? What are you hearing from people as far as embracing versus resisting?
Well, and that's a great question, Victoria. And it's what's interesting too is that um, I'll say that it's almost mirroring society, and that we just seem to be with each passing day more and more in a deeply polarized society. The way we are with AI is deeply polarized as well, right? You see people who are just opposed to it, and those who are just going full on down the
Right.
path with that, without thinking of any ramifications. And as to me, where the path to the promised land is, it's in the middle, right?
In the
So
middle. Mhm.
we need to see greater moderation of that. But what does that look like? So to me, it's again being able to still move with speed and with purpose. But and one of my favorite words, so that, and it goes beyond it just being a word, but living it in a way, is that it's around governance, right? And tying us back to
Mhm.
leadership. We
Mhm.
need
Mhm.
greater governance and leadership decisions around AI, right? The technology
Mhm.
itself, again, is it's there. We can apply it, but we need discussions. We need hard questions. We need the right questions to be discussed and asked in boardrooms, right? And it needs to go beyond just so if we brought in AI, could we lay off a third of our staff? I'm seeing that's again the people who are doing it wrong are asking the
Mhm.
wrong questions, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's not the right question to ask. Believe me. To me, what it goes down to is questions like, where are we seeing inefficiencies? How can we buy back more time for our employees so they can focus on higher value activities rather than maybe mundane tasks, which are dragging down morale or what have you. Again, we need to see leadership and we need to see accountability, and we're going down that path with a greater leadership and greater accountability is what use cases make the most sense for us to be able to adopt AI, right?
Mhm.
That's where I'm
Mhm.
going to say most organizations are falling short, right? So it's not
Mhm.
about being scared of it, and it's not about going too fast with it. It's that we
Mhm.
need to really understand what are the most significant use cases where we can leverage this and have this hard discussions and have clear um, accountability and leadership around that. Most organizations are missing that boat entirely. That to me is the
I
middle.
agree. Yes, I agree. I think that's a key point that you talk about, and what we talk about. I'm sure you do as well. But we want to make it clear to people that just if they want to put AI on a lead generation process, if it is not working now organically, it
Yeah.
is not.
No.
AI is just going to amplify the fact that it's not
Yeah.
going to work, right?
Yes.
Right? And
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that really fits into what you were talking about as far as, let's really, this is a business risk. We need to really be able to understand, what it is you're doing, what you're trying to do, so that we can make sure that this is going to work properly. Now, when it is working, like let's say in a lead generation, workflow, then yes, AI and automation can definitely, amplify it and make it work, at, a faster pace. But what I've found is sometimes, when people are thinking, well, no, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna have AI bots, or I'm gonna, but if there's no human in the loop and
Yeah.
human leading this, it just ends up, that's why people say, oh, that failed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And exactly to that point, too, in that that's where leadership needs to happen. Leadership right now isn't about saying whether or not to use AI.
Right,
Leadership right now, to me, is being able to confidently say, you know what, these processes suck. They're broken. Let's work on making great processes. Then
right.
we'll look at AI, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the type of decisive leadership we need right now. And that's where most people, I guess, aren't doing that. They're saying leadership is whether or not to use AI or what AI tool to use. That's not leadership, right? That is
Right.
literally not leadership, right? Ask the hard questions, do the hard work, then bring in AI.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So now when we do talk about that human first, the human in the loop, and everything that you do for your clients, how, keeping in mind everything we talked about with leadership and how you guide people, you know, how how is it that we can convey that message, that the fact that people are still making the biggest difference, like you're making a huge difference. So how can we reinforce that to the people listening to our discussion today?
Yeah, great question. And to me, what I often say is this: that the AI era that we're in right now holds
Mhm.
tremendous promise. Right, it will truly, I think,
Yes.
elevate many organizations. But just like there was in previous years where again people chase the allure of gold. Just like there was the gold rush of the
Right.
1800s, right? Human history is littered with people, chasing these things. To me, again, the people who do it, who are most successful in this, aren't blindly chasing something, right? It's
Hmm.
about being able to build something here that is going to be sustainable. So, like the analogy I was like pointing out, and having just been in Alaska, this was a story that I think was resonated very much to me in this era, was that in the 1800s, mid 1800s, there was the Klondike Gold Rush in Alaska, and
Hmm.
it brought
Hmm.
thousands and hundreds of thousands of people to Alaska from all over the world, and the people pursuing the gold, and the people who made the most money, and the people who I'll say were had sustained wealth afterwards. It wasn't people who found gold. The people who were most successful were those who supported the infrastructure around it. People who had outfitter shops, people who ran dog sleds, people who these are
Wow.
companies that supported the ecosystem. Right, they were the
Right.
ones that made incredible wealth, and in some of those cases still exist today. Right, and that to me, like I said, we fail to often learn in human history, and I see that right now in AI. We're chasing blindly the gold of AI without really trying to pause and think and say, in our business setting here, what makes the most sense, right?
Hmm.
If we're just going
Hmm.
to adopt, and again, majority of companies are just blindly adopting AI. Hey, I'm using Copilot. Hey, I'm using ChatGPT. Hey, I'm
Right.
using Claude, right? We're using AI. We're awesome now. That's not leadership, right? That's not going to give you sustainable wealth or sustainable growth as an organization, right? Like I said, it really boils down to truly understanding what makes your organization successful. Where is it that automation and AI can really unlock next level for both your company and for the people within your organization, and
Hmm.
not taking shortcuts, right?
Right.
We need to, like I said, you can still move quickly without having to resort to shortcuts. But it's just like I said, often human nature is to chase the glitzy, to chase the short-term gains without truly understanding what's at stake here. So, like I said, the companies that will win in AI aren't going to be the slowest. They're not going to be the fastest. They're going to be ones who chart a very clear path down the middle and are consistently moving down that path at a sustainable pace.
Right. And I love that you speak about that and you teach that, Dominic, because I think sustainable is a key word. It's not like
Yes.
all of a sudden they have to be like, yes, we're ready to go, because there is lots of times, there's background work, like you were saying,
Yes.
that
Yep.
that needs to happen. And in some cases, it may be that if they did try AI and automation and it wasn't working for them, for whatever reason, sometimes you just have to kind of start over,
Yep.
right? Would you agree?
Yep.
And just
Yep.
say, look,
I
let's really just look at, where are we? Where do we want to go? And then they can't be, the leaders can't be afraid of that, because that's that if they're afraid of that, and if they can have a guide like you, that's going to help them to make sure it is set up properly for success, for them to
it,
thrive, in the future.
Absolutely. It's about learning the lessons that you need to learn in order for it to do it well. Like doing AI well in an organization is hard, right? It's not something easy.
No,
So an
it's not.
analogy I like using is like learning how to swing a baseball bat, right? If
Hmm.
you want to be a really great baseball hitter, you don't just pick up the bat and start taking cuts, right? There's things you need to learn beforehand. Proper stance, being able to have good weight distribution, right? Hand-eye coordination. There's a whole bunch of things that go into swinging a bat well. Same thing goes
Right.
with AI, right? You don't just do AI, but oh yeah, let's jump in. In order to do AI well, what does that look like? Okay, we need to really understand our business. We need to really understand our processes. We need to have refined, very strong manual processes before we start looking at automation. We need to have very strong foundation around cyber, around how we manage data, right? These are all necessary prerequisites in order to do AI well. So before we even do that or launch into AI, let's focus on all those mini lessons that we need to do well in order to do AI well.
And can you hear me? I think we might have frozen for like
Oh,
a minute.
oh,
Yeah.
I
So
can hear
yeah,
you.
this is, I love technology when it works the right way. Right. So the last thing I heard before we froze was just about the manual processes. You were saying you have to make sure the manual processes are working. So
Yes,
could you pick up
yes,
from there?
absolutely, Victoria. So again, it was again knowing your business, having very strong and refined manual processes, knowing where maybe there are opportunities with employees, where there's opportunities to leverage AI, having a strong bedrock of a secure architecture, your network infrastructure, how data is managed and protected within your organization. These are all bedrocks and things that you need to really have well defined and in place before you start launching into AI. These are all, like I said, it's what, like I said, like swinging a baseball bat. It's not just about picking up AI and running with it. In order to do AI well, we need to really refine all these other things that fall under place.
I love that. So the last question is, if there would be one message that you would want all business leaders in the world to hear, what would that be?
It's a drumbeat that I have been hitting consistently, I'll say, for the past decade, is that we need to elevate cybersecurity beyond IT. It is not an IT issue. It is a business risk. Just like we talked about operational risk, financial risk, all sorts of other risk categories when we're assessing business risk. Cyber risk needs to be grouped in that, right? The time for treating this as an IT issue is long gone. So companies that treat it as an IT issue, they will not survive the AI era. I can promise them that, right? In order to truly elevate and succeed in the AI era, they need to update their risk parlance and what it means, what risk management means for their business, and they need to include cyber risk as part of that, part and parcel in terms of how risk is managed in an organization.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. I hope that you'll come back again and again and
Anytime.
again. Because I think next time, I think it might even be good if we talk about like a use case, so that,
Please.
some people that are listening may be able to see their companies in that, or
I
maybe
would love that.
it would be kind of, really zoning and getting them to think about some things. That would be the idea that I have. If you're good with that, then we'll plan on
That's
that for next time.
that's a resounding yes for me, my friend. I look forward to round 3.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, Dominic. Well, thank you so much. You brighten the world. Your posts on LinkedIn are amazing, and everything you do for your people it's just it is like a before and after. And I want to encourage everybody, if you haven't connected with Dominic Vogel, you need to, because it will be before Dominic Vogel and after Dominic Vogel. That's what I say. Yes. Your life will be changed. It will be happier. Yes. You can read his post and see his beautiful family and I love that dog. I mean, yeah. So you can't go wrong by, connecting or following. I don't know how many, you might be maxed out on connections, but yeah, but definitely follow and connect with Dominic if you can on LinkedIn and Substack
Please.
and all the other platforms.
With love and appreciation, my friend. And until next time, thank you as always.
Yes, until next time. Thanks so much, Dominic. Take care.
Be well.
I'll see you
Thank you.
soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.